When the sanctuary was facing closure, animals left behind were suddenly living on borrowed time. Among them was a frail bobcat cub named Luna, sick, orphaned, and just days away from being euthanized if a home couldn't be found. What began as a rescue mission quickly turned into something far more profound. A retired couple in Vermont stumbled upon the sanctuary's urgent plea, never expecting it to change their lives forever. They had the permits, the empty enclosures, and just enough hope to bring her home. But as Luna settled into their care, the couple uncovered a devastating truth about her health, one that would test how much their future was worth compared to hers, and the limits of their love. Before we start, hit the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of Mark and Victoria Harrison's Vermont farmhouse, casting golden rectangles across the hardwood floors. It was one of those perfect September days where the air carried just a hint of autumn's approach, crisp and clean with the scent of turning leaves. Victoria stood at the kitchen counter, her coffee cooling as she scrolled through her phone, when an article from the local wildlife sanctuary caught her attention. "Mark," she called to her husband, who was fixing a loose board on the back porch. "You need to see this." Mark appeared in the doorway, sawdust in his graying hair, his work gloves tucked into his back pocket. At 58, he still moved with the easy grace of someone who'd spent his life working with his hands. First as a carpenter, now running his own small construction business. Victoria, 3 years younger, had recently retired from her position as a high school biology teacher, though her passion for wildlife had never dimmed. "What is it?" he asked, accepting the phone she handed him. The article detailed the plight of several animals at the Mountain View Wildlife Sanctuary, which was facing severe budget cuts. Among the animals mentioned was a 4-month-old bobcat cub named Luna, who had been brought to the sanctuary after being found orphaned and severely malnourished near the Canadian border. The cub had shown signs of illness that the understaffed facility couldn't properly address, and the article mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that several animals might need to be euthanized if homes couldn't be found. "We have to do something," Victoria said, her hazel eyes already filling with the determination Mark had fallen in love with 32 years ago. Mark set down the phone carefully. "Vic, we can't just adopt a bobcat. There are laws, permits." "I know about the permits," Victoria interrupted. "Remember, I spent 3 years volunteering at the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center before we moved here. I maintained my exotic animal care certification. We have the space, we have the knowledge, and most importantly, we have the time." She was right, of course. Their 5-acre property, complete with a large converted barn, had once housed Victoria's small wildlife education program before state funding had been cut. The enclosures were still there, well-maintained but empty for the past 2 years. 3 days later, after a flurry of phone calls, paperwork, and a home inspection by the state wildlife department, Mark and Victoria found themselves driving to the sanctuary. The facility sat nestled in a valley, surrounded by maple and birch trees that were just beginning to show their autumn colors. The buildings, however, told a different story. Peeling paint, sagging rooflines, and an air of quiet desperation. The sanctuary director, Dr. Patricia Lawson, met them at the entrance. She was a small woman in her 60s, with silver hair pulled back in a practical bun and tired eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "I can't tell you how grateful we are," she said, leading them through the facility. "Luna's special case has been keeping me up at night. She's young enough that with proper care she could thrive. But here," she gestured helplessly at the overcrowded enclosures and understaffed medical facility. When they reached Luna's enclosure, Victoria's breath caught. The bobcat cub was smaller than she'd expected, perhaps 20 pounds when she should have been closer to 30. Her tawny coat was dull, lacking the lustrous sheen of a healthy bobcat, and she lay curled in the corner of her concrete enclosure, barely lifting her head as they approached. "Hey there, beautiful girl," Victoria said softly, kneeling by the chain-link fence. To everyone's surprise, Luna's ears perked forward. She lifted her head, amber eyes focusing on Victoria with an intensity that seemed beyond her years. Slowly, painfully, she stood and padded toward the fence, each step deliberate and careful. "She hasn't shown interest in anyone for weeks," Dr. Lawson whispered. Luna pressed her nose against the fence where Victoria's hand rested, and a rumbling purr, surprisingly loud for such a small cat, filled the air. "Well," Mark said, his voice thick with emotion, "I guess she's chosen us." The drive home was quiet except for the soft mewling sounds from the large carrier in the back of their pickup truck. They'd padded it extensively with blankets that smelled of home, and Victoria rode in the back seat, her hand pressed against the carrier's mesh, murmuring reassurances. The first weeks were a delicate dance of trust-building and care. Luna was installed in the smaller of their 2 rehabilitation enclosures, a spacious area with both indoor and outdoor sections, complete with climbing structures, hiding spots, and a small pool. But she showed little interest in exploring, spending most of her time curled in the heated indoor area. Victoria spent hours each day sitting quietly in the enclosure, reading aloud from various books, everything from Harry Potter to National Geographic articles about wild cats. Mark joined her in the evenings, and slowly, Luna began to venture closer. By the 3rd week, she would curl up next to Victoria's leg, that remarkable purr vibrating through the air whenever they were near. "She's gaining weight," Victoria noted one evening, watching Luna enthusiastically devour a portion of raw rabbit. "Her coat's looking better too." Mark nodded, but his expression was thoughtful. "We should schedule that vet check." Dr. Lawson mentioned she'd had some health issues, but the sanctuary's vet records were pretty sparse. They'd been putting off the veterinary visit, wanting Luna to settle in and gain strength first. But now, 6 weeks after her arrival, she seemed stable enough for the trip. Dr. Robert Mitchell ran the only exotic animal veterinary practice within 100 miles. His clinic, a converted farmhouse on the outskirts of Montpellier, had treated everything from pet skunks to rescued bears. At 65, he'd seen almost everything in his 40 years of practice. Almost everything. The examination started routinely. Luna, though nervous, allowed Dr. Mitchell to conduct his physical exam with only minor protests. Her weight was up 8 pounds from her sanctuary records. Her teeth and claws were in good condition, and her temperature was normal. "I want to run some blood work," Dr. Mitchell said, his bushy eyebrows drawn together in concentration. "There's something about her lymph nodes that concerns me. They're more prominent than I'd expect, even accounting for her recent malnutrition." The blood draw went smoothly. Luna seemed to trust Victoria's presence enough to tolerate the procedure. Dr. Mitchell promised to call with results within 48 hours. The call came exactly 47 hours later, just as Mark and Victoria were finishing dinner. Victoria answered, putting it on speaker so Mark could hear. "I need you both to come to the clinic," Dr. Mitchell said without preamble. His usually warm voice was carefully neutral. "We need to discuss Luna's test results in person." The drive to the clinic felt endless, though it was only 40 minutes. Victoria's hand found marks over the center console, their fingers intertwining with the practiced ease of a couple who'd weathered storms together. Dr. Mitchell met them at the door, ushering them into his office rather than an exam room. The walls were covered with certificates, photos of various animals he'd treated, and a large anatomical chart of feline musculature. He gestured for them to sit, then settled heavily into his own chair. "We have a big problem," he began, pulling out a folder thick with test results. "Luna has an autoimmune disorder, specifically a form of systemic lupus that's attacking multiple organ systems. It's extremely rare in bobcats, which is probably why the sanctuary's limited testing didn't catch it." Victoria's hand tightened on Mark's. "What does that mean for her prognosis?" Dr. Mitchell removed his glasses, cleaning them slowly, a delaying tactic they both recognized. "Without treatment, she has perhaps 2 to 3 months. Her kidneys are already showing signs of damage, and her immune system is essentially attacking her own body." "And with treatment?" Mark asked, though his voice suggested he already suspected the answer wouldn't be simple. "There's a new immunosuppressive therapy that's shown remarkable success in big cats with similar conditions. It was developed at Cornell's veterinary school, and I've seen it work miracles, but..." He paused, meeting their eyes directly. "The treatment is extensive and expensive. We're talking about an initial course of specialized medications that need to be compounded specifically for her weight and species, regular blood work to monitor organ function, and possible plasma transfusions. The first 6 months alone would run approximately $30,000, and she'd need maintenance therapy for life." The number hung in the air like a physical presence. Mark and Victoria weren't poor, but they weren't wealthy either. Their retirement savings were carefully allocated, their budget planned to the dollar. "30,000, Victoria repeated softly. "And that's just to start." "I wish I had better news," Dr. Mitchell said. "I've already made some calls to see if there are any research programs that might cover her care in exchange for data. But lupus in bobcats is so rare that there's no current studies. I even reached out to a colleague at the veterinary school, but their exotic animal fund is depleted for the year." The drive home was silent, except for Luna's occasional chirping from her carrier. She'd come to associate car rides with returning to her safe space and seemed almost eager to get back. That evening, as Luna curled between them on the enclosed porch they'd winterized for her indoor time, Mark and Victoria had the kind of conversation that tested marriages. "We could take out a loan against the house," Victoria suggested, her hand absently stroking Luna's spotted coat. "That's our retirement security," Mark pointed out gently. "What happens if something happens to one of us? Medical bills of our own?" "I know, but look at her." Luna had stretched out, her paws kneading the air in her sleep, complete trust evident in every line of her body. "She trusts us to take care of her." They explored every option over the following days. Their savings account held $8,000 earmarked for emergency expenses. They could perhaps pull another $5,000 from their retirement without severe penalties. Mark's brother Thomas, a successful contractor in Boston, could possibly loan them something, though asking family for money went against every principle Mark held. Victoria contacted the sanctuary, hoping they might contribute to Luna's care, but Dr. Lawson's response was devastating in its finality. "I'm so sorry," she said over the phone. "We're facing closure ourselves. The state has cut our funding entirely. We have 60 days to rehome all our animals or they'll be euthanized. I wish we could help, but we can't even acknowledge Luna officially anymore. She's been removed from our records as successfully rehomed." The unfairness of it all hit Victoria like a physical blow. Here was a creature who'd done nothing wrong, whose only crime was being born in a world that had no room for her. And now, even the system meant to protect her had abandoned her entirely. As October faded into November, Luna's condition began to fluctuate. Some days she was playful, pouncing on the toys Mark crafted for her, swimming in her pool despite the cooling weather. Other days, she barely moved, her breathing labored, her appetite gone. Victoria documented everything, creating a social media page called Luna's Journey that began attracting followers. The initial response was encouraging. Donations trickled in, $50 here, $100 there. A local news station did a brief segment that raised another $1,000, but they were still woefully short of what was needed. Mark reached out to wildlife organizations, writing letters that Victoria proofread through tears. Luna didn't ask to be orphaned. She didn't ask to be sick. But she's here now, in our care, and she's shown us that even wild hearts can trust, can love, can hope. We're not asking for charity. We're asking for a chance to give her the life she deserves. Most responses were form letters expressing sympathy but inability to help. Some didn't respond at all. One particularly harsh reply from a conservation organization stated that resources should go to healthy animals that could be rehabilitated and released, not to maintaining a sick animal that would never be wild. "They don't understand," Victoria said, crumpling the letter. "She's not just a sick animal. She's Luna. She has a personality, preferences. She loves when Mark sings to her. Badly, I might add. She has a special chirp just for when she sees the wild turkeys pass by her enclosure. She's begun to play, to trust, to live." By early December, with the treatment deadline approaching and only $12,000 raised despite their best efforts, Mark and Victoria made a heartbreaking decision. "If we can't save her," Mark said one snowy evening, "then we'll make whatever time she has left magnificent." They created a bucket list for a bobcat, fresh salmon from the expensive fishmonger in town, a new climbing tree that Mark spent 3 days constructing, complete with platforms and hiding spots. They brought in a wildlife photographer friend who spent hours capturing Luna's grace and beauty. They even arranged for a small heated pool, knowing she loved water despite her illness. Victoria spent entire days with Luna, reading, singing, or simply sitting in comfortable silence. The bobcat had taken to resting her head on Victoria's lap, purring with such intensity that Victoria swore she could feel it healing her own heart even as it broke. "You know we love you, right?" Victoria whispered one afternoon as Luna dozed against her. "Whatever happens, you need to know you were loved. Completely. Unconditionally." Luna opened one amber eye, slow blinking in the way cats do when they're content, and Victoria felt her composure finally crack. She sobbed into Luna's fur while the bobcat, in a gesture so tender it defied her wild nature, pressed closer and purred louder. It was December 15th, a date circled in red on their calendar as the last day they could start treatment for it to be effective. When Victoria's phone rang, she almost didn't answer. She'd been getting calls from reporters wanting to document Luna's final days, which she found macabre and intrusive. But the caller ID showed her sister Margaret from California. "Don't you dare say no," Margaret began without preamble. "What?" Victoria was confused. She'd told Margaret about Luna, of course, but her sister had her own financial struggles with 2 kids in college. "Check your email right now." Victoria pulled up her email on her phone, Mark looking over her shoulder. There was a message from Margaret with the subject line, "Luna's Christmas Miracle." The email contained a GoFundMe page that Margaret had secretly created 3 weeks ago. But instead of posting it publicly, she'd reached out personally to everyone she knew Victoria had ever helped. Former students Victoria had tutored for free, families she'd supported through difficult times, colleagues from her teaching career, wildlife enthusiasts she'd educated over the years, Mark's construction clients whose projects he'd completed even when they couldn't pay immediately. The total raised was $42,000. Everyone wanted to help. Margaret's voice continued through the phone Victoria had nearly dropped. They just needed someone to organize it. Tom Morrison, remember him? The kid you tutored through high school when his parents couldn't afford help? He's a software engineer now. He donated $5,000. Said you saved his future. Least he could do was help save something you loved. Victoria couldn't speak. Mark had taken the phone, was thanking Margaret through his own tears. But Victoria could only stare at the screen, at the messages from dozens of people whose lives she'd touched without ever expecting anything in return. Mrs. Harrison gave me confidence when no one else believed in me. This is for Luna and for her. Mark built our house with integrity and kindness. Helping Luna is the least we can do. You taught us that every life matters. Now let us help prove it. Dr. Mitchell, when they called him with the news, actually whooped, a sound incongruous with his usually dignified demeanor. Bring her in tomorrow, he said. We'll start treatment immediately. And Victoria, Mark, this is going to work. I can feel it. The treatment wasn't easy. The first weeks were touch and go, with Luna experiencing reactions to the medications that required constant adjustment. There were nights when Victoria slept in the enclosure, monitoring Luna's breathing. Days when Mark had to carry her to her favorite sunny spot because she was too weak to walk. But slowly, incrementally, miraculously, Luna began to improve. Her appetite returned first, then her energy. By February, she was climbing her tree again, though carefully. By March, she was playing with the elaborate puzzle feeders Mark had created to keep her mind active. The community that had rallied to save her stayed involved. The local news did follow up stories. School groups came to learn about wildlife conservation, with Luna as a living ambassador for her species, though always observed from a respectful distance to maintain her comfort. Dr. Mitchell became personally invested in Luna's case, often refusing payment for follow-up visits. This is groundbreaking, he said. We're writing papers on her treatment. She's going to help save other wild cats with similar conditions. By April, 1 year after her rescue, Luna was thriving. Her coat gleamed with health, her eyes bright and alert. She'd developed a routine. Mornings spent sunbathing, afternoons playing in her pool, evenings curled up near Victoria and Mark as they sat in her enclosure, reading or simply being present. You know what I've learned? Victoria said one evening, watching Luna chase fireflies through her enclosure with an energy that seemed impossible given where she'd been. What's that? Mark asked, his arm around his wife's shoulders. That compassion isn't just a feeling, it's an action. All those people who helped Luna, they didn't just feel sorry for her, they acted. They proved that kindness isn't naive or wasteful. It's the most powerful force we have. Luna, as if understanding, bounded over and rubbed against their legs, her purr rumbling through the spring evening. She was no longer the dying cub they'd rescued. She was Luna, survivor, teacher, and living proof that love, when combined with action, could indeed work miracles. The veterinary college at Cornell eventually offered to cover Luna's ongoing treatment in exchange for data on her condition, ensuring her care for life. Mark and Victoria continued to share her story, raising awareness and funds for other wildlife in need. Luna became not just a rescued bobcat, but a symbol of what communities could accomplish when they came together. And on quiet evenings, when the sun painted the Vermont hills gold and Luna dozed contentedly between them, Mark and Victoria knew they'd been part of something larger than themselves. They'd saved a life, yes, but more than that, they'd proven that in a world that often seemed cruel and indifferent, compassion could still triumph. Luna lived for 8 more years, far exceeding any prediction. When she finally passed, peacefully and surrounded by love, her legacy continued through the Luna Wildlife Fund, which has since helped save dozens of wild animals with treatable conditions. But for Mark and Victoria, she was never just a cause or a symbol. She was Luna. She was family. She was proof that every life, no matter how wild, how sick, how abandoned, deserved a chance to be loved. And in the end, that love had made all the difference.